Hi, I'm Judy Tyabji. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we have Bill Vanderzalm as a guest. And before we talk to him, I'd like to give you some of my thoughts on BC's political scene. Now, it's interesting because anyone who's paying attention knows that the so-called right wing has been in flux for some time. I think it actually dates back to the end of the Bennett dynasty with the Social Credit Party. The Social Credit Party, which my dad was a member of for many times, and I mumble that when I say that publicly. Just kidding. The Social Credit Party was a loose coalition of liberals and conservatives and people who called themselves free enterprisers, basically business people. And those business people came together under what certainly many of us perceive to be a center-right coalition. Well, when the Bennett dynasty ended, there seemed to be a jockeying for power within that party. Bill Vanderzalm emerged as a leader of that party, and some perceived him not to be someone who was centrist or even center-right. Some people perceived him to be right-wing. After the '91 election, the BC Liberal Party came up the middle with a centrist leader. However, I think the power brokers continued to want someone who was more right-wing. Now we have the Liberal Party and the Reform Party carving up what used to be social credit territory. And so, the voters who don't like the NDP have a choice. Do they want to continue to back two parties that continue to fight over what's remaining of social credit, or do they want to start over with something new? And that, I think, is a choice that faces all of us. And frankly, until the Liberals and Reform decide what they're going to do with each other, we won't know what will happen to what remained of social credit. But until voters choose something new, I don't think we're going to be able to solve many of the problems facing British Columbians. That's my opinion. What's yours?
The Tyabji phone lines are now open. From Victoria, call 383-6036 or toll free at 1-888-383-6036. Call now.
And of course, we have Bill Vanderzalm as our guest, and I'm sure he'd like to hear from you on many subjects, including some of the subjects that came up yesterday, which are issue-based. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, Judy.
Well, it's interesting. I haven't seen you for a few years. I guess it was up in Prince George, you were saying.
Prince George on a radio program,
right.
Talking program. I was leaving, you were coming on. You had to take care of all the problems that I created. It worked. It worked.
Well, I won't get into that subject. Now, let me just start with the political thing, and then I'd really like to talk to you about some issues. I mean, how long have you been around politics in BC? Around, back and forth?
1963.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
It's a long time. I was very young when I started.
Yeah,
As a matter of fact,
5 years old.
I was the youngest council member ever elected, the youngest mayor.
How old were you
I wasn't
when you
the
were
youngest
elected?
premier when I was elected, but certainly I did a lot in between.
And you were elected at what age?
Well, that would have been about 30 years of age or so, which was young then. Today, they're starting younger.
Starting younger, okay. Yeah. So anyway, so your political career predates my birth. Anyway, interesting.
Wow.
A weird world. I want to ask you, now the BC Reform Party, which you've come in and captured a lot of attention over, the performance in the '96 election was pretty shaky. As I said, I think people perceived the SoCreds fighting it out, and the Liberals, in terms of fighting for that turf, won that battle. Two former SoCred members were elected as Reform MLAs, and they're no longer sitting as Reform MLAs, so you don't even have an elected member in the House. So why should there be credibility given that people like Martin Brown, senior Reform and former SoCred strategist, and Paula Peterson also went SoCred Reform, they're both with the Liberal Party. So why should there be credibility with Reform?
Well, first of all, I'm not so sure that you can say the Reform did poorly in 1996 without saying the Liberals did even worse.
In what way?
I think they were perceived to have been the winners. They were perceived to be the party that would beat the NDP and take control. A lot of people won't vote Liberal in this province.
Now,
they'll look for something else or they won't vote at all. So there's always those. Even in 1996 we had those people. But I think the Liberals in 1996 performed very poorly. I mean, we went through a whole election without the mention of Bingo Gate. We went through a whole election without a mention of the mess that had already been created fiscally by Harcourt and his group.
But having
we
said
went
that,
through a whole election without them really addressing the changes to the Labour Code and how it was already beginning to affect employment in the province.
Okay,
so the Liberals did very poorly.
But some people say with a different leader of the Liberals, and I believe there are even some polls that showed if you'd had a centrist leader, someone like a Gordon Wilson. He would have won in 96, whereas Gordon Campbell was perceived to be not a centrist leader. A lot of BCers didn't feel comfortable with him. So what I'm saying is,
You know,
it seems
the
like you guys are
average-
fighting for the right wing.
You've been in politics too long yourself, Judy. The average British Columbian doesn't really give that much concern about centrist, right
No, it's
or
a gut
left.
feeling.
They want good government. The average British Columbian doesn't really care a whole lot about what your philosophical views.
No, but it's a
they
gut
want to
feeling.
know how you're going to create jobs, how you're going to create economic
Well,
activity.
you take care of them. That's a gut feeling. And that's where, I mean, when I say, sure, I'm using
So
political
centrist,
terms.
right wing,
Well,
it's important to politicians, but to the average
Well-
voter out there, forget it. Give me good government.
Okay, so you think the Liberals performed poorly. Having said that, Reform, I think, went in the 20s, ended up with 9%. Liberals went in the 60s, ended up with 40-something%. Both of them lost support when the writ was dropped. What do you think you can bring that's different from what went into it with either Gordon Campbell or Jack Weisgerber?
Well, first of all, I think we're being a little presumptuous when you say, what can you bring? I have not decided to go back into politics as much
Well, even as
what the
president,
media
then.
makes it out to
Okay.
be. I do think it's extremely important that, like every other province in this country, we have more than a choice of just Liberals or NDP. Because it's a very short walk between the Liberals and the NDP,
Why do you
or
say
the
that?
NDP and the Liberals.
People see them as opposites, though. Why would you say that?
Take a look at what happened in the House over the last 7 years. 85% of the time, the Liberals voted with the NDP.
Right.
So it isn't that much of a walk from one to the other.
But there are-
And if I were an investor sitting in Asia, the United States, or Europe, looking to BC as a place to possibly invest, and I saw a Liberal government and an NDP opposition, I would say, hey, hold off just a minute. I don't think I'm going there yet. I'm not really ready for that. Maybe Alberta or Washington State or Oregon or any place but BC is a better choice. So we need a combination a little different than Liberals and NDP, because that spells disaster for years to come. And you know, this province can't wait that long. We're in such terrible shape
We are in shape.
right now. We
bad shape,
can't
but-
wait that long.
Okay. Now, having said that, if you wanted to play the devil's advocate, and everyone knows that I'm actually attached in a partisan way to the leader of what's the third party in the House. The PDA have actually elected their leader in the last election. So why wouldn't that be the third option? Since, as I say, Reform and Liberal always seem to fight over the same turf. And if anything, I don't think people would say that you're going to, for example, look at welfare reform or daycare or some of what we consider the issues in the center. You're talking investment, you're talking business. That's the Liberals' turf right now. So what is it that you're going to bring that you think you could recreate the Silk Red Coalition? Which is what needs to happen, really.
I'm not so sure that coalitions work today. I don't think really coalitions is what people are necessarily looking for.
Okay.
I think perhaps because coalitions only last so long, and then the factions within the coalition begin to try and take on one another, and you've got disaster then as well. I've seen it happen.
Okay.
So I would not necessarily recommend coalitions. I think there needs to be a place for people to express their views regardless of what they are. I think if we had a place in the legislature for the Greens and the Communists and the Family Coalition and every other party, it would be all the better for it. And what we need in this province, perhaps more than anything, is electoral reform.
Okay.
Proportional representation,
But when you were
preferential
premier, you
ballot,
didn't bring
a
anything like
combination
that
of
in.
both.
In fact, the Fisher Commission came in under the Silk Red government. At no time was there a look at electoral reform. In fact, I believe there was a problem. The reason that the Fisher Commission had to look at redistribution of seats was there is gerrymandering under the Silk Red government, where they actually added a few extra seats to Silk Red territory, and so then suddenly we had to redistribute. So have you rethought that? Suddenly you think there should be some electoral reform?
First of all, I don't think there was gerrymandering. There certainly would have been accusations
I
of that,
believe there was
more
a
than
court case and
accusations.
somebody won. There was a court case
I
that
think
actually led to that.
you're going back to Gracie's
Yeah.
finger, which is a long time
Okay,
before,
all right.
but in any event, no gerrymandering, but undoubtedly the government of the day has some influence one way or another. The
Okay.
fact that they are the government tends to influence how it is things might happen. But Why didn't I do that when I was there? There's a lot of things I might have done or should have done in retrospect.
Okay.
There's a lot of things happened. I mean, you've opened it up now. We had the best economy in the whole of the country. We were in better financial shape than any other place in Canada. We, I think, probably did more by way of social programs and introducing new concepts for the handicapped or people like this than any government prior to ours.
Okay.
So there were lots of good things happened.
Okay.
But maybe there's a lot of things could have happened that didn't happen, and
Right.
maybe I should have stayed longer. You're right.
Well, I'm certainly enjoying this interview. The lines are jammed. We're going to come back with some phone calls. And before that, for those of you, I understand the last 5 years, half the population has arrived or something like that. A lot of people don't know what happened that was so controversial. We're going to give a little bit of a look back, and you can even say your piece on that if you like, and then we'll go to the phones right away. We're talking to Bill Vanderzalm.
This program has been brought to you in part by the National Geographic Theater and IMAX Experience.
Please don't adjust your color. We've just adjusted ours. Pantene Pro V, now in new white packs. Same healthy shine inside, new look outside. The new look of shine.
Time to get dressed. We're late. Jimmy, don't forget your homework. Quick, pick out something to drink.
Okay, we got purple boxes, Cola, and Sunny D.
Grab a Sunny D. Yeah.
Make their lunch with Sunny Delight singles. All the great taste kids love with vitamins. Sunny Delight, it's goodness kids go for.
What is it?
I don't know. I've never seen anything like it.
Feel like you're the only one who knows how to change the roll? Try Royale Double Roll. 2 rolls in 1. For less changes, double your Royale.
So your hair's a little damaged? That's okay. Really damaged? Even better. Because the worse the damage, the harder this works to restore shine. Pantene Pro V Conditioner. It's damage control every day. For hair so healthy looking, it shines.
Sharing a healthier future with Participaction. Participaction wants you to know childhood obesity has increased 50% since 1980. Only 15% of teens exercise enough to be physically fit. Future health of 1 in 5 kids is at risk.
In this very sophisticated society, the levels of physical fitness of our children are in fact declining.
Participaction also wants you to know there are solutions. In Ontario, the Activate program developed by the Foundation for Active Healthy Kids is helping students learn new skills, sharing a healthier future.
It just makes me feel good.
I think you get more focus.
It helps me in school.
Programs like Activate can make a real difference now and in the future.
We have to take charge as parents to get kids back to being active. Physical activity is a powerful determinant of ultimate health.
Sharing a healthier future, Participaction.
Today we're talking to Bill Vanderzalm, who is now the president of the Reform Party of British Columbia. And we'll go straight to the phones because we had a bit of a technical glitch, and certainly there are a lot of people who want to talk to you. So let's start with John in Souk. Hi, John.
Hi, Judy. I have a question for Mr. Vanderzalm. 2 lawyer friends of mine read the Hughes report and said it was the most contrived document they'd ever read. I like his comments on that, plus his views on the brown paper bag full of dollar bills.
Okay, well that's...
Thank you very much.
Interesting.
Well, first of all, I spoke early on to a very good lawyer friend of mine who is of the same opinion, that this report is rather biased. And
Now, he's
frankly,
talking
having
about-
been there, I know how biased it was.
Okay, now
But
people
having-
need to know that he's talking about the Hughes report, which
Hughes report,
which claimed
conflict
that
of
there was a
interest.
conflict of interest. Okay, just so people know.
And so I've had legal opinion on it as well now. And the person that gave me the legal opinion, so often people will tell me things because that's what you want to hear.
Right.
This person definitely not, and he was ready to take it one step further and do something about it, but I said no. Secondly, he mentions the brown paper bag. There never was a brown paper bag. It was at the end of a deal having been concluded. The purchaser of what was ours, the property that we had been a part of for so long, and which was a beehive of activity, had been purchased by this person.
Right.
And he said, now I want that big jade map of BC that's sitting in the center, and I want you to buy some furniture for one of the apartments, and I'm going to give you money, and you take it, put it in the safe, and we'll need to spend it. So that's how it was.
Well, sometimes these things develop a momentum of their own.
I know. It sounds exciting. Brown paper bag, parking lot.
Yeah. I tell you one thing. When Gordon and I were going through this funny period, there was a story, big story, about a tape of us having nicknames for each other. Appeared in the newspapers, appeared on TV, was one of the top stories. It was proof. The tape never existed. It was a prank joke. We had no nicknames for each other. Yeah. I think it was Wolfie and Babji. It was like that Princess Di Squidgy thing. Anyway, so I know a little bit about what you're talking about. Okay, Patricia and Victoria, go ahead, please. Patricia? Okay, you have to listen to your phone and not your TV set. Okay, you know what we're going to do now, since Patricia wasn't quite ready? We're going to show them that clip. And this is what happened, and it was actually Good Friday in 1991, and it was a retrospective prepared at that time, and you'll notice some of the people in it, Grace McCarthy, Brian Smith, all people who were players at that time in what was then the government of BC. Let's take a look.
With regrets that I'm announcing today that I will not be seeking nomination.
It was 8 years ago on Good Friday that then Education Minister Bill Vanderzalm called it quits and left government, but his absence would not be a long one.
Alphabetical order are Brian Smith, 454. Bill Vanderzalm, 801.
After a failed attempt at municipal politics, Vanderzalm was back in the provincial political scene, where he took the social credit leadership at Whistler. Before long, the new premier would test his popularity with the people.
It's time to ask the people to make their choice, to decide for themselves if they want to be a part of our new start.
Well, what we've seen this evening is fantastic.
But the glow of victory couldn't last long. Vanderzalm took on controversial issues, and while he influenced people, he didn't always make friends.
Every child in this province should be a wanted child, a child of choice.
Abortions can be performed now according to the new rules in a doctor's office, a clinic, or a hospital. All we're saying is we'll only pay for abortions in a life-threatening situation. I didn't like the video. I agreed with the minister. He didn't like the video. Could they still clean this up now?
Sure they could.
They must be made to clean it up.
Soon other controversies began to spring up. There were suggestions of helping friends in high places.
I don't know anything about the pubs. I don't keep track of pubs.
So you're not concerned?
Not particularly.
One of the findings of the report is that the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch made a decision based on an irrelevant consideration.
Soon those controversies would cause people to fall all around the premier, but he still wasn't a quitter.
Because of this incident, 2 people lost their jobs. They're having to have their lives changed, their families affected. Now, what is it you want? You want to see these guys stabbed and bleed and lying on the ground squirming, or what is it you want?
Some of the comments that have been made by the Premier and others concerning who might occupy the office of Attorney General.
It is my opinion that the underlying cause of the problems faced by myself in these past 18 months in relation to the office will not disappear.
Today, we are resigning caucus and making our intentions known to all.
But while Vanderzalm tenaciously hung on to power, his government began to feel the effects of his style of leadership.
I think that certainly it was an anti-Vanderzalm backlash.
Jansen, 5783. Dryden, 28.
Even though some thought this was the end of Bill Vanderzalm, it was not to be. He bounced back time and time again and still maintained his stance of not giving up.
The results.
This transaction between 2 parties
from Asia and North America. It's just only the beginning.
But this may have been the beginning of the end for Bill Vanderzalm.
Where there's a conflict, and say it publicly. Say it publicly right now where there's a conflict.
Well, I have no apology.
No more.
Still, he tried to hang on.
I'm not a quitter. I never was a quitter. I never will be a quitter. I'll quit when the job is done.
But today, with the odds against him, Bill Vanderzalm did walk away from a long and controversial career in the public eye.
That's okay, I'm accustomed to that. But I certainly wish you all a very happy Easter. Have a wonderful Easter.
All right, and he's back. And that was over 7 years ago. And we'll go straight back to the phones. Get a call in before the break. June in Vancouver, go ahead, please.
Hi.
Hi.
I have two short questions for Bill. One is, what have you got new shovels for the welfare people, or have you got the old rusted one yet? And two, what makes you think that people can trust you again? Okay. I have the feeling that we've got the best government in right now. They're the real liberals.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Now, she's making a comment that relates back to a controversy about your position on welfare. Okay, well, why don't we...
Minister of Social Services, Human Resources.
Okay, why don't we back up and make it a question just about welfare in general? We actually had a letter after yesterday's show saying single person on welfare makes $500 a month. $325 of that is for their housing. So what would you do for people who are on welfare? What do you think could be done differently?
I don't know exactly what it is might be done, except to say that obviously it needs to be worked out both federally and provincially, number one. Secondly, the system as we know it today really doesn't work. There are no doubt people that abuse the system. There will always be people that abuse systems. But for people legitimately in need, there's not much there. First of all, the amount isn't enough for a person to really get by on well, if at all. And secondly, there's no incentive for people to get out of that system and into something better. So the system, in answer to the lady, if shovels need to be there, if that's the solution, by all means, let's look at it. But let's not close our eyes to the need for change.
Okay.
It's not there today.
So are you thinking then that if the government should be more involved with incentives, like presenting people with the tools, whether it's a shovel or...
Yeah, I receive all sorts of letters now, more than I can probably handle. But one of the letters I received yesterday was to do with a person in need of helijet training and in logging operations. And the person is in need of $3,800 to go through that whole course. This is someone who does not have a good background, has had a lot of problems, but is wanting to get out of that now. And he was told by the system that he had to be on welfare for 7 months in order to qualify for the help needed
Yeah,
to
we
get
get calls
through the
about that
course.
every day.
It's crazy.
Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be back with more of your calls and comments to Bill Vanderzalm after this.
Tyabji is brought to you in part by Metro Lexus Toyota, leaders in customer satisfaction.
Looking vibrant is reserved for the very young. Do you believe that? Neither do I. Maturing skin can look vital too. But how? Clinical tests have proven that a new line of moisturizers from Oil of Olay, which combine a complex of Olay moisturizers, essential oils, and vitamins, help replenish maturing skin's moisture, helping to give it a feeling of healthy vitality. Your skin can look revitalized, radiant. And the name? New Provital for maturing skin. Proof we can help you look revitalized.
Ooh, ugly dirt, but I know who to call. The guy with all the muscle, he can do it all, Mr. Clean.
On tough, greasy dirt, this leading disinfecting cleaner makes you work too hard. It's easy with Mr. Clean. Cleaning's a snap.
Oh yeah, he gets it all shining clean. We power through the work and it's so easy to do it. Me and the big guy, nothing to it, Mr. Clean.
He's tough on dirt, easy on you.
Before your next drink,
AA. It works. Look us up in the phone book.
Today we're talking to Bill Vanderzalm. That's the correct spelling, is it? Vanderzalm. That's the first time I've seen it.
That's
correct.
the correct
There
way,
you go.
although most people do Vanderzalm.
Yeah, and he's the president of the BC Reform Party and de facto the leader because of some constitutional amendments. Yeah, there's no elected
De facto,
leader.
you're right.
De facto leader. Okay. We'll go back to the phones and start with Lou in Surrey. Hi, Lou.
Good afternoon, Judy.
Good afternoon.
First of all, how is the most beautiful of all the world's talk show hosts?
Thank you, Lou.
Okay, Bill.
Lou's a friend of yours.
I don't know Lou, but he's complimentary.
Bill, I've known you for a lot of years.
I know Lou.
Oh, you know Lou.
I think I know the voice.
And I think, I know from where you come from in politics, etc. But at the same time, Bill, next time around, assuming that you're going to be carrying that title that you now have, President of the BC Reform Party, you got to work at getting a better grade of candidates. Now, the last time around in 1996, they were falling by the wayside there. There was 2 weeks to go before the big day. They hadn't even had their nominations yet. You got to get them on the bandwagon. You got to teach them, hey, there's an election coming up. Don't leave it to the last minute.
Okay, so an organizational question. You've been quoted as saying you're traveling the province, rebuilding the ridings. How is that going? What's your timetable, and how organized?
Well, that's a major undertaking because definitely after the problems in 1996, after the resignation of Weisgerber, after Neufeld crossed over to the Liberals, all of that certainly had its impact on the Reform Party, and there are a lot of people that are still of the view that a vote for reform might be splitting the vote, so to speak. So we've got much to overcome. And that means we've got to rebuild the constituencies. The memberships have lapsed for a good part. We
Do you have a
need to
timetable
bring
for
money
that,
in,
or?
and unlike some of the other political parties, as a matter of fact, one of the things that I just want to mention on the program now, knowing it'll be picked up by somebody and hopefully commented upon, is I think when we bring in all of this electoral change that I'm proposing needs to come about, we should also make it that unions and corporations cannot donate to a political party.
Well, that'll be pretty controversial.
Just individuals. I
guess,
think
I wonder
that'll
if
make
you'd have
the
that
system
position
much
if you were
fairer.
leader of the Socreds still, or if you were
Yes,
leader
I
of the
would.
Liberals.
I would. I
Okay,
think
now,
it would be helpful.
do you have a timetable for rebuilding the ridings?
Well,
Like,
in
are you-
answer to Lou's question, definitely I've got to, in the next 6 or 8 months, we must rebuild the constituencies. We have to have stronger regions with regional directors. We need to get into finding good candidates. And we need to keep and monitor what happens with the other parties as well, because I think there is an opportunity to bring some together.
All right, so no timetable yet?
No.
Okay. Len in Victoria, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi. I'd like to say to Mr. Vanderzalm, if I was down there, I'd shake your hand.
Thank you.
I noticed you're getting all the flack here. They're showing all the bad things that were done. What about all the good things? You know, this guy did so much for this province. It's unbelievable. You know, it's just, I'm so happy. It seems, you know, it's a cloudy day outside today, but it's sun shining now.
Okay, well, thanks, Len.
Thank you, Len.
So there you go.
We
Big
need,
supporter.
we need 1 million Lens.
Well, there's only 3 million people in BC, so.
Just
all
give
right.
me 1 million.
So, well, it's nice to get positive feedback from people. Good. Yeah, all right. Now, David in North Delta. Hi, David.
Hi, I'm Len number 2.
There you go. All right.
Judy, I just wanted to say hi and say to Mr. Vanderzalm, I really admire him taking a chapter out of his life and working for the well-being and the rebuilding of this province and the people in it. And I would also like to say thank you to his wife, Lillian, the beautiful lady that she is, for lending us her husband again.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, it's interesting, he mentions Lillian. She was very high profile when you were Premier, and that was interesting. It was the first time we had a Premier's wife so high profile, which frankly is probably a good thing. Mike Harcourt's wife was not high profile. Glenn Clark and Gordon Campbell's wives wives have not been high profile. But I haven't seen her since you've come back into the arena. Is that a strategy, or is it just...
I don't know if Lillian was really high profile. Yes, she has a presence. There's no doubt about that. When Lillian goes to an event, she has a great presence, and I'm very proud of that fact.
Right.
She did go to all the events that we required her to participate in with me, because that's the type of person she is.
But she wasn't in those photo opportunities, sort of standing beside you the way she used to be.
She never made much comment about things, and she never commented on anything. She always said no comment. I should have learned from Lillian.
So she's going to be around.
And she was running a business, of course, where she was fairly high profile as well. She had these fabulous gardens that she was very much a part of, and she was daily meeting hundreds or many people. So obviously that gave her a profile. But yeah, in the meantime, she's doing a lot of her own stuff, and I guess probably she'd like to continue on with some of that, but this is bringing her a little bit into the limelight again. You can't help it. If that's where you're at, that's the exposure you get.
Okay, let's talk to Stephanie in Vancouver. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's not Stephanie, I don't think.
No, actually it's Stefan.
Sorry, Stefan. Go ahead, please.
Actually, I'm surprised that I actually got through. I've tried to get through many times. My comment actually is that, well, to start with, I don't think Mr. Vanderzalm is part of the solution to the problems of BC. And I think we all would recognize that if we really thought back clearly about what was done in the past. But my comment is really about how do we change the system. I heard earlier talk about coalitions and how they don't work. But the problem is with our democracy is that the people are removed from the governing of ourselves. And what about if we started a class in school, starting out fairly young in school, called politics?
Right.
And our school children learn what politics are, they learn what parties are, they learn what beliefs are, what democracy is, and we start a system of debate where the people become involved in the process, rather than just electing officials who are really like used car salesmen. I mean, I listen to Mr. Vanderzalm, he's sounding very seductive because he's saying whatever he wants, what he knows we need to hear, and he's basically saying what he has to say if he wants to be elected.
Okay, so
and it sounds very wonderful, but I think we have to change the system. The democracy we're living under just isn't working.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off there, Stefan. Now, it's interesting because the BC Teachers Federation actually fought hard and won a fight for, I think it's called civic studies or something, or civic duty, and there is now in the school system a course that's just starting, I believe, this fall to teach people how to participate more in democracy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, commenting on what Stefan said, so I don't go without commenting on what he said or allow him to get away with some of the things he said without comment. He suggested that Bill Vanderzalm was not the answer to the problems. I don't know what the problems, he didn't identify them in his mind. I'm guessing the problems are the economy, jobs, where it is we're going fiscally and the likes, and we didn't do too bad during the time that Bill Vanderzalm was there, but I'm not plugging Bill Vanderzalm except to correct that statement.
You are plugging Bill Vanderzalm, that's why you're here.
Secondly, he said, I'm saying what people like to hear. Well, that's good news, because I'm saying what I believe, and if that's what people want to hear, obviously I'm on the right track for Reform BC. Thirdly, he talks about democracy not being what it ought to be. The system is wrong. I agree with him totally.
Okay.
I think the system is wrong. I don't believe we have democracy in BC. I myself was in effect a dictator for a time because that's how the system works.
Right.
The Premier, the Prime Minister, they are dictators once elected. That's how the system functions.
So obviously educating people on how the system works would help.
Then he mentions educating people, and I have some problem with educating children. Who are we going to get to educate our children about politics in BC? Is it the BCTF who decides who perhaps might be teaching those courses? Is it the school boards, or is it the combination of the two? I don't know, like that. We need to import somebody from outer space to teach people about politics, or it'll be slanted. It'll be slanted.
You certainly need someone from outer space to explain our politics.
Yeah.
Now today, as a special new thing that we're introducing. When we have political leaders on, we're actually going to tell you how you can have more information on their parties. And so this will go for all of them. And the first time, Reform Party of BC, P.O. Box 466, Surrey, BC, V3T5B7, phone 604-584-7722, fax 604-929-8497, and their website is www.reformbc.bc.ca/reformbc. And now we'll take a break. And by the way, that's not an endorsement, you see.
Did you say 584-7722?
What did I
think
say?
you might have. 584-7722.
Are you getting more free advertising?
I'm sorry,
Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Okay, we'll be right back. That's just shameless.
Right. See you at the reunion. Great. Well, this is long distance, so...
Sprint Canada has introduced a new long-distance plan that's changed everything.
So, what have you been doing the last 20 years?
Unlimited calling in Canada.
Me? Pole vault. Oh, I just don't have the wrists for it anymore.
Call to anywhere in Canada and talk all you want, evenings and weekends, for just $20 a month.
I know. I hate having to say goodbye to you too, Mom.
Now you don't have to.
So make sure you bend your knees. Yeah, because that way you'll fall forward. And make sure you wear your helmet.
Now talk as long as you want.
I miss you.
I miss you more.
And as often as you want.
Guess who? I know I just called you, but it's me again.
I miss you.
For unlimited long distance, call 1-800-488-9145.
Does this change everything or what?
The Earth is in a race with global warming, and the Earth is losing. We have the power to fight global warming by demanding more fuel-efficient cars. Contact the Sierra Club.
And today we're talking to Bill Vanderzalm, who is the president of the Reform Party of BC. And you haven't convinced me, Bill. You haven't yet convinced me, but there are people watching.
I don't want to do it that quickly.
No, boy, oh boy. Okay, Duzanne in Burnaby. Hi, Duzanne.
Hello, Judy.
Hi, go ahead.
Well, I don't know how much time I'm going to have, and I really don't know where the heck to begin. But thing number one, Bill, will you please explain to all the viewers that are possibly viewing your program right now what the state of the financial affairs was when you left, and what the true state of the financial affairs of this province is right now after, what, about 6 years of the that party, whatever the name it is, if you know what I'm saying?
Okay,
yes.
Well, let me...
So far, everything we heard from those guys was nothing but a bunch of baloney.
Okay.
And so far, everybody's been accusing you of things that are kind of non-existent that the media created for the reasons of selling the papers, selling the advertising on TV,
okay,
and basically just creating the mockery. I really believe strongly that the person that previously said that our system doesn't work is absolutely 100% right. How can these guys get away with that, with what they've been get away with for so long?
Okay, well, let me get him to answer that. The financial record as you remember it, and then I will probably take you to task.
Okay, I'll try and do it very quickly. When I became premier in 1986, we had a deficit of $1.5 billion. We just came out of a recessionary time, or certainly we're at the end, I suppose, of a recessionary time. So
but what was the debt?
It was $6.8 billion.
Okay.
The accumulated debt.
Yes.
The accumulated deficit, actually,
The accumulated deficit, right. There's a difference between a credit card and a mortgage. Your credit card was at 1.5 billion and the mortgage was at 6 point something billion.
I'll just deal with the deficit was 1.5, the accumulated debt was 6.8. No, sorry, 6.3 billion.
Okay.
When I left office, the accumulated deficit had been reduced to 3.8 billion, and we had 2 or 3 successive balanced budgets.
However,
so and we did not, as the NDP likes to do, finance things off budget. They're financing everything off budget.
Yeah, capital costs.
That's why the shape of this province is worse than people perceive it to be, and it's bad.
Okay, you know, I have to take another call, but I do have something that I would want to take you to task on that. But Doug and Victoria, go ahead, please.
Oh, hi, Bill. It's Doug here, and hi, Judy.
Hi.
I was wondering, Bill, how people in politics can stay into power after all the scandals and stuff. Like, if I worked at a bank and if I was to embezzle some money, I wouldn't be allowed to work at a bank again. I'm just wondering how you politicians seem to keep popping up after you resign, after all your troubles.
I agree with you.
It seems that lawyers, too, are the same way. Like, most of have been in more trouble than anybody.
You just stated enough reason right there to kick out the NDP. I have never reached into somebody's pocket, not even for a penny, particularly taxpayers. When the NDP got involved in the budget gate, the bingo gate, the Pakistan problem, all of those sorts of things, you're right. They're reaching into people's pockets when they do that.
Okay, now 2 things. When the NDP took over in 1991 and when they changed their accounting practices to pull in some of the accumulated debt in Crown corporations, they took over, it was roughly 18 billion of accumulated debt. And the deficit, I believe, after, it was only 3, you didn't pass the estimates the year before the election, right? It was only 3 weeks of debate and actually ended up on special warrant spending that year. But now, I will agree with you, their record's atrocious because they've gone to over roughly 30 billion in accumulated debts from 18 to 30. But actually, under your premiership, it went to 18 billion in debt. I mean, that, you know, it was fairly significant. But I think there's the second part of that.
Can I respond to that?
All right.
Well, you are now, I was dealing with the accumulated deficit and the deficit. You've taken in the accumulated debt for government and Crown corporations.
Right.
So you took in...
And not all the Crown corporate debt, mainly just capital expenditures.
Yeah, you took in the 2 super ferries for which money had been allotted within the ferry
No, those
corporation.
were after that. No, that was after. That's part of the 30 billion. That's part of the 12 billion that was added after.
The Crown, I'm dealing with government accumulated deficit. And of course, there were some things historically, I guess, funded off balance sheet, but very few during social credit because W.A.C. Bennett wouldn't have it, Bill Bennett didn't change it, and I didn't change it during the time that I was there.
Okay. Well,
so, and aside from that, you know, during the time that I was there, we lowered the income tax, the personal income tax, to where it was the lowest in Canada. The corporate income tax, we removed the extra levy, plus we lowered it to the lowest in Canada. I can't let you keep doing this, Bill,
because we have to go to a commercial.
Okay,
I know there's a lot of things, and also the problem is, I didn't bring,
like,
I know, but I'm not going to take you to task as much as Glenn Clark or Joy McPhail would, so, because I'm not as interested as they are. Anyway, we'll be back after the break with more of your calls and comments.
Donovan Bailey loves the 100. The Maple Leaf 100% all-meat Frankfurter. They aren't like typical all-beef hot dogs because all beef isn't always all meat. With 100% all meat and seasonings only and no fillers, byproducts, or MSG, Maple Leaf 100s have a big, bold taste. That's why Donovan loves a 100. Maple Leaf 100s, all meat, no fillers, great taste.
Please don't adjust your color. We've just adjusted ours. Pantene Pro V, now in new white packs. Same healthy shine inside, new look outside. The new look of shine.
The time in a diaper is time wetness can take its toll. Because wetness can be a harsh environment for delicate skin. Pampers Premium with the Gentle Touch Liner plus Aloe puts time on their side. In just 7 days, Pampers Premium can help smooth and soften your baby's skin. Pediatricians know healthy-looking skin is soft and smooth. Soft skin, smooth skin. Isn't it worth seeing what 7 days can do when you pamper the skin they're in?
What is it?
I don't know. I've never seen anything like it.
Feel like you're the only one who knows how to change the roll? Try Royale Double Roll. 2 rolls in 1. For less changes, double your Royale.
Julie Ryan, top performer. Vice President at 31. She knows her priorities. Julie is a mentor. 1 hour a week in her local school, she's making a difference. Big Brothers and Sisters of Canada's mentoring program, sponsored by Czech TV. Because like Julie, WIC cares. And right now, she hopes you care too.
And today we're talking to Bill Vanderzalm, a former Premier of BC, somebody who I know people have very strong opinions about, and I've actually been restrained, but I'm taking 2 calls in a row. And we'll start with Norma in Ladner. Hi, Norma.
Hi. I don't usually phone a talk show, so bear with me.
Okay.
I have a 2-part question for Mr. Vanderzalm, and it's to do with parliamentary pensions. When a person is in Parliament, this applies incidentally both to provincial and federal, but I realize he can only answer for the provincial. I think it's if the full term is 12 years and then they get their pension.
7.
What I would like to know is, for instance, if a person went into politics at age 40 and they did 12 years and then they come out, he's only age 52. He gets his pension.
Okay.
Now, probably the person was a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, and I think when you go into politics, you go in because you're supposed to want to be a politician.
Okay.
So I feel when he comes out at 52,
right,
he is going to go back to work in his own field.
Or she.
Or she, yeah. I didn't mean any certain gender.
Okay.
And why does the magic 80 not apply to them as it does, say, with the armed forces? If you spend 20 years in the armed forces, you come out after 20 years, and if you're only 40 years old or whatever it is, you get a very minimal pension.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there and hold on to that because we're trying to get a few more calls in. So it's about pensions and the parliamentary pensions. Rhonda and Nanaimo, go ahead, please.
Hi, I guess I'm Len number 3, and Bill Vanderzalm is the answer. And we need to get this incompetent NDP out of power. We need Bill Vanderzalm in BC, and how long do we have to wait for an election? We need them out now.
Okay, thanks for that. If you're the answer, what's
Very
the question?
supportive.
That's what I want to know.
I appreciate that.
All right,
Thank you.
so the parliamentary pension question.
Well, as far as the parliamentary pension, I think we're getting a little confused between the federal pension and the provincial pension. The provincial pension, I don't think, becomes available to a person until they're age 60, and then they have the option of drawing it earlier and getting a smaller amount, or waiting until they're 65 and getting a larger amount. I'm not quite sure about the numbers, but that's how it was, I believe, when I was there. Also, when I was there, it was 3 terms. It's since been changed to 6 or 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
7 years.
Although they have amended it again in terms of what they're being paid, but not much.
It used to be very frustrating for me. I used to get pressure from caucus on both sides where they wanted to amend it to 6 years. Yeah, people go in there and they become a little greedy. And I guess for some there's maybe an honest need, but I agree with the lady. When you serve for 6 or 7 years, are you really then entitled to a pension forevermore?
Right.
It's a bit of a problem for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Okay, let's talk to Gail in Victoria. Hi, Gail.
Oh, good afternoon, Judy and Bill. Bill, I'd like to say congratulations for coming in and getting back into politics. What I remember of you is that you believed in confrontation and not cooperation, and that you fought at every battle you could, and that you taught no tolerance, and that you should be a figurehead for the religious right to rally around.
Okay, well, that's somebody obviously...
How do I answer that?
Well, I think...
Except he said confrontation instead of
get into
cooperation, or I
but,
guess.
I mean, people did perceive you as very uncompromising, which you consider to be an asset, but it was, you put your policy out there, and that was basically, you saw that as being the role as leader. Have you changed, or do you still believe that that's the role of leader?
No, I guess perhaps everybody's a little bit different. No two people are ever the same. And he's right in this respect, that I think politicians too often tend to compromise all the time, and we compromise not up, we compromise down. We seek the lowest common denominator, and that's where we end up. And I think that's got us into a lot of trouble. And particularly, I think this gentleman is very much to the left. He's a left-winger.
Well, how do you know?
Just from the sound of things.
Oh, come on. See, he just said you weren't very tolerant. I mean, if you listen to someone's voice and go, well, you're left-winger.
That's not being intolerant to say he's a left-winger.
Because you like left-wingers.
No, I don't. I don't like left-wingers, but a lot of people do.
Oh.
But should I tell you that I like them just because
No, I'm just saying,
here?
it sounds like you're saying, well, by the sound of his voice, I've judged him. And I think that's what people worry about, is that you're going to be just as judgmental as you were when you were premier.
Well, what should we do once you become premier, once you get involved in politics? Should you not make judgments? Should you simply say back and say, well, we'll depend on the computer? No. There is judgment in this business. And if you're not prepared to judge, if you're not prepared to take a stance, if you're not prepared to tell people where it is you're at, we'll get the type of politics we've seen too long in this country and has brought us down to the lowest common denominator.
Okay.
It's
On that
time,
note, we
whether
have to
it's
take a break.
Bill Vanderzalm or somebody else, we need some quality.
Yeah, well, now we only get one phone call in the next segment now. We'll be right back with more of your calls to Bill Vanderzalm.
What's wrong?
I don't want to go to school. I'm scared.
Don't worry.
A bathroom tissue soft enough for your child's tender skin? It's Royale, so soft it could be facial tissue.
Toilet paper?
It's soft.
Royale, so soft it could be facial tissue.
Looking vibrant is reserved for the very young. Do you believe that? Neither do I. Maturing skin can look vital too. But how? Clinical tests have proven that a new line of moisturizers from Oil of Olay, which combine a complex of Olay moisturizers, essential oils, and vitamins, help replenish maturing skin's moisture, helping to give it a feeling of healthy vitality. Your skin can look revitalized, radiant. And the name? New Provital for maturing skin. Proof we can help you look revitalized.
I really didn't think I was going to get a kidney. When you're tied down to a schedule just for medical treatment, then you know how little time you have.
An organ donor registry has been introduced in BC that replaces all previous ways to indicate your wishes for organ donation.
More than just quality of life, more than family life, it's a second chance to live.
To sign up, you must fill in a registration card and return it to the BC Transplant Society.
And it's incredible. It's incredible.
There are a lot of reasons to shop at London Optical.
People don't look at you and go, hey, nice Coke bottles. It just doesn't happen anymore.
We were able to provide a thinner and lighter glass lens that she'd ever experienced before, and she was absolutely thrilled.
Just that kind of style and technology mix, that's what I like.
It makes me feel wonderful.
During the Great Canadian Sale, save up to $100 off complete glasses. London Optical, great quality eyewear at a great price.
And we're talking to Bill Vanderzalm, and even an hour isn't long enough for some of these things, but this is the cover of a new magazine in Vancouver called West Coast Winds. Now look at that. That's sort of what the last caller was talking about, that's the image people have of you, of a fighter, and that's not morphed on. You posed for that, right?
I did.
That's your okay, so that's the comeback kid.
Good picture, isn't it?
Oh, well,
really good.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Oh, well.
Well, I have a husband watching probably, so I don't want to say anything. Now, listen, the confrontational aspect, we closed the last segment, you were talking about a leader's role is to judge things and follow through. You had a cabinet when you were premier that one by one seemed to walk away. Now, in recent comments, you've talked about solidarity and saying the one thing about the NDP is they can have solidarity regardless of media scandals. Even if you want to blame the media for what happened when you were premier, your cabinet colleagues chose to follow that popular opinion or that media line or whatever it was. One by one, they abandoned you. How would you have things any different if things went the way as some of the callers have said that the next time you're going to be premier?
A little bit of an exaggeration. One by one, you saw Grace McCarthy and you saw Brian Smith.
And
These
the
were
four
both
young
the top
ones.
contenders against Bill Vanderzalm at Whistler. The 4 other ones were in the caucus. They didn't get into cabinet, and I guess that caused a bit of a problem. I'll grant
Mel
you...
Cuvelier was another one?
No, Mel Cuvelier was a good finance minister, did a good job, stuck by, no problem. So, but there was the odd problem, you're right. And I guess perhaps in a free enterprise party where you have individualistic people that have their own opinions, particularly when 12 of them come out of a leadership race, you're bound to have some problems, and I experienced that.
But W.A.C. Bennett was a very strong leader. He was the leader of the Social Credit who basically established that dynasty. And even with the people like Phil Ghilardi in his cabinet and such strong individuals, he managed to not only have that base of support in his cabinet, but he captured the majority of votes in the province. And he was virtually unassailable.
No, it's true he did extremely well, although, you know, it's hard to compare. I could very well say if I was to choose all over again and could pick the timing for when to be a premier, I would have picked the 50s or the 60s over the late 80s or 90s.
I was just going to say,
times have changed. The media is very different today from what it was in the 60s
but
or even 70s.
it's not going to change. And now we're entering in the new millennium, and there's a lot of young people coming on who have a lot of anger, they have a lot of issues. We haven't talked about daycare, we haven't talked about fisheries, some of the issues that are out there. It seems to me that there's a lot of politics and style and charisma, but as for the issues, that's where you get into hot water.
I'll probably get into hot water over issues I have previously, because people know where I stand on issues, but I certainly get things done, and I guess that's important for people as well. And I suppose I differ somewhat. I'm not, now people will really get the impression that I'm running for something, but I guess I differ somewhat from the other leaders in the sense that I've been there. Listen, Fantasy Gardens had 150 employees. All my life I've been employing people. I know about these things, and I know the problems that businesses suffers and what it is employees need to contend with.
Okay,
so that helps.
All right, and we're at break time, and we'll be back with closing comments. Thanks for coming, Bill.
Thank you.
And we're back with closing comments and a preview of upcoming shows after the break.
Again.
With Jeeps and trucks like these, and offers like Dodge Ram 2.8% financing, and Jeep Laredo $369 a month, things just could get out of hand.
I think we're going to need more cars.
One at a time, please.
Chrysler's 1998 Clear Out event. It's on now.
I think we're going to need more cars.
So that was my first restaurant. Had a reputation of having the best food between Cincinnati and Atlanta, Georgia.
The Colonel's not something we made up. The Colonel was a real guy from a real place. And Canada loves the way he learned to cook chicken.
Well, I learned to cook as Mom had cooked.
Right now, you can get 15 pieces of the Colonel's one and only finger-licking good chicken for just $14.99. Your choice of original recipe or tender roast where it's available.
Real meals, easy as KFC.
Please call the Variety Club of BC, because all kids need help.
For mattresses, shop with confidence at Dodds because we won't be undersold.
Dodds Furniture!
Dodds Furniture is your chiropractic mattress center. Sleep healthy and feel better on a Springwall chiropractic mattress. Available in 10 styles, each in firm and extra luxury firm. Get the rest you deserve from the Chiropractic Mattress Center at Dodds Furniture.
Selection, prices, quality, guarantee. Why go anywhere else? Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
And coming up, we'll be looking at privacy on the internet in a cyber privacy show tomorrow. Very interesting. And then the future of our telephones now that there's competition in the market. And then a wine show. How easy is that for a Friday show where we can talk about wine, and a little bit of a slam at the liquor board, actually, while we do that. If you'd like to have any comments or questions on today or tomorrow's show, you can fax us at 250-389-1226. Now, today we talked to Bill Vanderzalm, someone who is no stranger to anyone who's been following anything about BC politics for the last 10 years. In my opinion, though, we are in different times. The last comment he made is probably one that rings strongest for me. And as we move forward as a province, we have to build something new. And that's where I don't think it's that productive to be fighting over old turf, which is what I think the Liberal and Reform are doing. That's my opinion, and we'd like to hear yours again tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.